What's going on, everybody? Good to see you guys.
Good morning.
We're so glad you guys are here. We are so excited if you are a guest for coming today and being here. And we want to talk honestly and openly about relationships and conclude Heartbreak Hotel by sharing with you guys like some of the things that we've had to learn and just a little bit about our own lives. Today, the format will be a little different. We want to invite you to come back if you're a guest today or if you're listening online. We'd love you to, again, listen next week. But today it's going to be really special. I'm really excited because we get a chance today to hear the brilliance and the wisdom and the insight that is Mrs. Brenda Harrell, and I'm super excited to be able to have her, share with you guys today. We've got some questions you guys have submitted that we're going to just kind of like rock through today. And so this is going to be a different weekend for the podcast. If you're listening to this, you are listening to the bonus podcast. That this is the only week that we're ever going to do this. Most likely is we're going to let the questions we did in the first service also be published because we're going to answer different questions just for you today. So if you want to hear the things we talked about in the first service, you need to go and listen to that this week. And I'm going to tell you right now, I want all of you listening to this. If you found this somehow on the podcast or if this is the one you're sitting in, please go listen to it and ask your significant other, your partner, your husband, your wife to listen to it as well, because I really feel like it was a really significant amount of wisdom and insight that we want you to share. So without any further ado, we're going to jump into the questions, and we want you to know a little bit about why we do this. It is not easy and it's not fun for us to be super honest and transparent, but I think it is healthy. And we want you to know that we're never going to be pastors that follow the lines of the script of, hey, this is what perfect pastors do and this is how their marriage looks. That's not what we do. We're never going to do that. So if you're looking for a church where the pastors tell you all the right things, say all the right things, do all the right things, you're in the wrong place, because I'm not going to raise Eliana to have to perform because she's got to measure up to some idea that these church people have about her or about us. We're not going to do that. We want to be honest and real, and that means that we're going to share with you guys the stuff that we're still challenged by and working through. And so we'll do our best to do that today, and we hope that that is something that you guys will appreciate. Okay, so without any further ado, Mrs. Brenda Harrell, everybody.
All
Mrs.
right.
Brenda Harrell.
So great. Okay, well,
Which one do you want to
let's
do
see.
first?
I know, this is going to be crazy. Well, I think it's great. I think you already answered this, but one of the questions asks, often we look at pastors and put them on this high pedestal, they're always perfect and flawless because of the work that they do. How is this different from the Harrells? And give us one example of when God has brought your marriage out of a difficult time.
Me?
Yeah.
How did that happen? You switch a route on me just now. I'm supposed to be asking you.
We're taking turns. So I read the question, and
I guess I would say that we went through a real public and difficult season 2 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago now. And it was a very private and secret thing that because of our desire to have integrity, we didn't share and didn't say our side, and a lot of people had questions, and there were even people who had hurt feelings, and we're just why wouldn't you tell us? How come you didn't tell us about this, that, and the other? And it was just because we want to be people of integrity, and so for us that introduced us into a very difficult season and a very trying time that our marriage really began to take on we were taking on water, man, and our ship was really struggling to stay afloat, emotionally speaking, spiritually speaking, and it was so private, and the dynamics of what we encountered were things that we couldn't go and say. It was hard to get help. It was hard to get our team or our people that usually could be a support system to really understand it, because we would have had to have violated our integrity and shared things we didn't really want to share. So I think that was a difficult time, and it led us to really taking on a stronger amount of investment of our own personal household budget into counseling. And so every single week we see a counselor together, and it's been really wonderful. It's been very difficult. and we've had to look at our lives, and so we're going to share some of those things today, and we shared some of them. Again, go listen to it next week in the first service podcast. So I would say that that's a little bit about how it's different. I would also say that we are determined to be honest with you guys and transparent, and to share things that if I asked you to raise your hand, hey, how many of you want to get up right now and talk about the things you don't do very well relationally in front of everyone and have it go out to thousands of people all around the world? Anyone? Raise your hand. Like, not a lot of hands are going up, so it's like, it's not comfortable, but we feel called to it. And we feel like we're supposed to redefine what it looks like to do church and to be pastors. And I want to define church to your kids and to you and your marriage and to my daughter and to like all of our city and all around the world as an authentic, real place where real people need the real Jesus. And we're not perfect, but we serve a perfect God who loves and forgives us and will give us the wisdom that we're willing to put into practice. And so that's what we're going to do a little bit today. So let me go ahead and jump in. Why don't you point to something that you like there?
Let's see. Oh, you know what? Okay, might as well just go. We're going to go deep. Everybody ready to just go for
deep
it?
End of the pool.
We're just
Some of you are
going
going
to
need floaties. Prepare.
No, I mean, yeah, this is...
Okay, I'm asking. Here we
Okay,
go.
go.
How do you deal with a spouse who is disrespectful to your feelings and your time schedule needs, but expects the opposite from you?
I mean, first of all, whoever asked this question, thank you, because that takes a lot of courage, and it's a very true place to be. I feel like this is something you should answer, because I feel if I'm gonna keep it 100, honestly, like just 100, I think that this is something that you have to manage and navigate more than I do. When it comes to feeling disrespected, me being disrespectful towards you when it comes to your time schedule and like some of the needs that your schedule with ministry and work.
I'm with it.
But yeah.
You need to, well, I'm going to answer this. But
Yeah.
the next question, you cannot point to something I have to talk for, okay? That's cheating. It's not the point. Okay. So hold that.
Yeah,
all right.
I got it.
Okay, so this is what I would say is when someone makes rules in the relationship that they want honored and they set boundaries up that are like, hey, I want you home at this time, or I want you to consider me before you make this plan, that's healthy. That's good. So I want to speak to all the couples out there, and specifically to the women. If you feel like you are not being prioritized and you feel like you can't get your need met for the time you have, that's not wrong that you feel that. There's nothing wrong with feeling that. How you bring that up is where you probably get into problems. You have a healthy way that you could bring it up or an unhealthy way. And you might do it from a position of fear, like you're not being valued, you're not being cared for. He cares more about his job. He'd rather go do this event. He doesn't even think about it. He didn't even ask me, and he's just telling me, he's informing me, but he didn't involve me in the discussion for his decision. That's fair, and you're right, and I have done that a lot in our marriage, and I've had to learn to ask and give Brenda the chance to discuss it and for us to come to a win-win. And this is a hard place. It's a hard place for a lot of us. I would say that, number one, if you feel like there's rules that you want to give, that's healthy, and do that. But the way you do that needs to say, hey, I want to come to an agreement that before the relationship, makes a decision on my calendar, that we discuss that if it's going to impact us. Now, if I'm at work and who I want to go to lunch with, that doesn't impact Brenda. I don't need to ask Brenda, who would you like me to go to lunch with today? Okay, that's not what we're talking about here. But if it's going to take away from time her and I are supposed to have at the end of the day, in the morning, on our days off, then it's 100% a decision that she and I both need to discuss before I make it. And the same thing is true of her. She can't just make decisions about how late she'll get home or when she will or won't do things that impact me without informing and involving me in the discussion. And we did not do this well in our many early years of marriage, and I think I was probably the chief culprit of that. Just going, doing my thing, and the exciting opportunities, and she was just, and we had to learn, and she had to learn how to bring up her need in a way that I could hear it, and not feel like, like I didn't care. And here's the temptation. is that it's easy for us all to bring up our fears and our worries and our insecurities and our vulnerabilities of, I feel like I'm being missed. I feel like I'm not being prioritized. I don't feel like you want to spend time with me. It's easy, and often our natural sinful state that we go to first is, you just don't want to, I feel like you care more about your job than me. You'd rather hang out with them than me. I feel like you just don't, it's like, I feel like we're just not ever spending any time together. And we do these ever, always, never, always, everybody else but, and it's always these super overgeneralized statements which are super dysfunctional and should never be used. Because it's not always, it's not never. And when you do that, it's an intimidation tactic that you use, because now it's like, you're always wrong. Say something. You can't say nothing. Yeah, the evidence is so big against you, it just crushes the spirit of the person, and they're just like, yeah, I guess I'm just always a failure. And that a lot of that is common for a lot of us. It had become common early in our years. And so we've learned to be able to say, not, you would just rather, but here's what Brenda has, as our marriage has gotten better, she has learned to bring her need to me, and she's got to be courageous and vulnerable. And that's the difficulty, isn't it? It's hard for us as people to come and say, hey, I'm needing some time with you. Isn't it so much easier to say, you don't want to spend time with me? I feel like you care more about your job. You'd rather go do that. Oh, you just want to go hit balls and play golf. Oh, you just want to go. And it's like, it's so much easier to just lob the attack instead of lowering your pride and being honest and vulnerable and saying, I really need some time with you. I'm feeling like I need connection. See, that puts her in a vulnerable place, and we don't like feeling vulnerable, so it's just easier to be like, you don't care, and that's the problem. When really the problem is, I don't know how to bring this up in a way that's still vulnerable and engages you and doesn't push you away with an attack. And so this is important learning for us to bring up our need in a very crucial way. Now, having said that, once you work on how you bring your need up, and listen, you have a need, it's okay, you need to bring it up. And listen, ladies, he needs you to bring it up. He's not you, and he ain't thinking like you, and he's not a bad man because he don't think like a woman.
That's right.
He's a man. Some of the women that I have talked to in my ministry lives, they're like, I just wish he just like knew how much. And the more they talk, I just go, you know what? And I had a pastor friend of mine say this one time, and I've used it. It's like, man, it just sounds like you really want your man to think like a woman. Sounds like you want like a girlfriend for a husband. Like you want him to think like he's not. He is a man, and you need to help him know what you're feeling. And you need to help him hear what your experience is. And your experience is vital and important and crucial, and he needs to hear it from you. But you've got to engage him in a way that doesn't make him feel like attacked, like he doesn't care. Assume that he just doesn't know, and he needs you to give him insight onto that. And so Brenda has really done a great job for me in this space to be like, hey, I'm feeling like our family's going to get missed. I'm feeling like we're not going to be a priority. Like Eliana and I are going to come second, and the church or the ministry or these other people or the hospital visit is going to come first, and that's what I'm feeling. That's healthy. Listen, when she does the work to bring it up in a way, I need to recognize that that's not the natural bent of us as humans. The natural bent is to attack and accuse and stay safe and lob the attack. So when she actually does the work emotionally and spiritually and lets the Christ in her shine, then I have to respond positively to that. And I can't get defensive and say, what are you talking about? What? No. Like, what do you mean? Like, look at all the things I'm planning for you. Look at all the stuff I'm doing. Because now that's me being defensive instead of me seeing her work, her not attacking, but her just sharing her need. And guys, sometimes she just needs to share her need, and it doesn't mean you failed. It just means she has a need. Her emotional need is not a statement of whether you failed or not, as long as she doesn't bring it up like you're a failure. She just brings it up like, this is what I'm feeling. It's an opportunity for you to go, oh, no, babe, I don't want you to feel that. Like that. I don't want you to experience it. I never want you to feel like the church is first. I never want you to feel like we're going to build this thing and like it's got to be all about like, no. In fact, if anything, I want the church to always know their families are not as important as you and Eliana. And I'll tell it to them in sermons from time to time. I want you to know that in this moment, that's not what I want. So when that happens, and it then switches. So it's like, she's like, hey, here's the things I have. Here's what we have been just recently probably dealing with, and it's this. So this is the timetable I'd like for us to connect as a family. And then when Brenda has freedom, or when she's out, freedom, like she's trapped in the dungeon, but like when she's out doing her day or doing her thing, then she'll, instead of asking me, is it okay if I come home late last night when she was on her way back from visiting with her friend Maria? So last night, like, she went out and had, like, I took Eliana, she's been real sick, and so last night she texts me, hey, I need to stop by, do this thing, run this errand, do this thing, I'll be home later, which we have learned that's informing of a decision, but I'm not involved in it.
Yeah.
So I don't get a chance to say, no, can we talk about this? Can we come to a win-win? Because that's a win-win for you. And a win-win for you is not a win-win for the relationship. The relationship always comes first before the individual. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
The relationship has to win before the individual wins and before the outside world of the relationship wins. This is the couple bubble. This has to win. And so last night when she got home, I was like, hey, I kind of feel like, I kind of feel like frustrated because, like, and I don't care. I'm going to work with whatever we agree on. But we've agreed that I don't come home late without talking to you about it. I don't miss time with you unless I let you know, hey, this has come up. Can we agree on this and work around it? And tonight, like, that's not how it went. So which one do we want to do? Do we want to let each other have the freedom to, like, hey, oh, this came up, so sorry, and we're always nice and cool about it? Or do we want to always talk? She's like, no, you're right. Like, I should have called you, and I didn't. I'm sorry. So that's how you do it. What I didn't do was, oh, I guess it's fine if you do what you want to do. When it's your turn to have freedom and do what you want, you ain't got to text or call me. I don't get to be involved in the decisions for Brenda, but I got to call Brenda for all the decisions about me. Isn't that nice?
Because even as he's saying that as just like an example, in my mind, I'm like, oh, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do this.
Because once I do that, here's what that is. Everything I said earlier, then I don't even give her a chance to hear, oh, gosh, I didn't try to do it on purpose, but yeah, that is what I did. I put her in, you're a hypocrite, you don't care, see, look, you think I'm the only one. She doesn't even get a chance to be, like, sorrowful because she's just under attack of my dysfunction. And so I brought it to her, I shared, I feel this, not you did this. It was like, hey, I feel like this, and this one, and she was able to not be all, well, yeah, you're to talk, like, what about? And she didn't get out the list of every time I've done it wrong, which is a defensive posture because you don't want to hear something you did wrong. And so, like, the reality of, like, what that moment has to become is, okay, I'm hearing him, he's sharing it, and that is key. So if you feel like they're breaking the rule they set up, you need to give them a chance to hear about that without condemning them, without shaming them, but you use, I feel, this is what it made me feel like, can you respond to that, what do you think? And she owned it and apologized, and we went on our merry way. Now, for the question that Brenda's gonna answer.
Oh my gosh, no, that was seriously such great advice, babe. I knew you had such great experience.
That's great. Don't try to get out of it.
Kind of going off of that, actually.
Just point to it and I'm going to ask.
Let's see. So, this 10.
Okay, good.
Okay.
When we are at an event or in a group setting, my spouse kind of forgets I'm there. Sometimes doesn't even introduce me to those he knows. Signed, Pastor Chris Harrell.
Oh my gosh.
Just kidding. Pastor Brenda Harrell.
I know, I'm always leaving him when we're out, guys. Yeah, right, no. We're both like super social butterflies.
That could have been written by Brenda, to be honest.
Yeah, it could have, no.
Go ahead.
I think that...
Tell him the truth.
I think that, like, reading this, I've definitely been in that situation where I feel... just he's who he is. You guys know him. He, like, doesn't ever meet a stranger. It's just like he's like that. Like, that's not like a front. Like, that's just the way he is. And so it can be intimidating, and at times it can feel like I'm like an extroverted introvert. So for me, I love being around people, but I can be around people like for a certain amount of time, and then I need to like go replenish and be by myself and like go back to like my safe zone. Whereas Chris, he can like go from a party to like an after party to like the after party, and then like just keep going. He is like that, and he thrives. Like, that pours energy, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that for me, for a long time in our marriage, I didn't understand myself enough, and two, I didn't understand him. And I think there was just a lot of criticism. There was a lot of self-inflicted, feelings of neglect. And really it comes back down to being able to understand each other's stories and understand like, hey, like, and bring it up to him like, hey, when you're in the car, figuring out, because especially like with our stories, you might not like have seen that when growing up, like both of you, I never really saw my dad include my mom. Like when we were all out and about, like he never really like kept his arm around her. It was just like, you know, kind of did his thing. So I think there was like some childhood hurts from that. And then also just being like, I don't want to be left behind, like at parties, and I enjoy him. He's funny. Like I like being around him. I like hearing his jokes. I like laughing. So it's like fun to be around him. So I think with this, it's just really important to know yourself, to know your spouse. And then thirdly, I would say like know your marriage, and like creating like a couple bubble is what our therapist calls it. And that's something that we've been working on just because of our personalities and the way they conflict and like challenge one another. It's easy to like be very isolated and live in our own silos and live in a one-person system instead of a two-person system. And when you're in a marriage now, like it or not, you are in now a two-person system, and you can't operate as an individual. You got to keep going back to, this is what I want, this is what you want, but what is best for the marriage? And almost like seeing the marriage as a separate entity that needs both of the individuals that are a part of it to submit, surrender, and like give to the overall well-being of the marriage. So I would say in this situation, that my encouragement would be to have that conversation. Just say, hey, like I know you don't mean to this. I love that you are so social. Like you make me laugh. Like when we're at parties, this is what I love about you. Like just start with that. Like start with like, hey, and tell yourself that, because when you're in those moments, it's easy to only remember the negative. Like he always does this to me. Like why, he just doesn't care about me. Then you start self-shaming and you're like, it's because he's not like proud of me. It's because he, whatever, I don't know, like just feeling self-shame. And so just being able to start with, no, he does love me. He does care for me. He does think I'm cool. He's not like trying to like ignore me and like not trying to be with his friends or introduce me to his friends, but he just loves people and he gets caught up in that, and there's nothing wrong with that, and that's the one thing I love about him. However, there's also my need, and now that we're working with this two-person system, like that's important. That's just as important too. So being able to also slow down and identify your need and not like just accuse out of that need is like a really big thing. And once you identify your need, bringing it to him in a way that he can hear it. And just being like, okay, coming to the win-win where it's like, hey, this is what you want. You love to be in a social setting, but this is how I feel in those social settings. So how can we like figure out a win? And and one thing that we have learned that has taken us a while is to do that ahead of time. Like literally, it sounds so dumb. Like if it can feel at first so dumb to do, but literally like, hey, let's talk through what this looks like, what tonight looks like.
Because you're going to talk about it. Okay? You're going to talk about how it goes in the car afterwards when you're pissed.
Yeah, or not talk about it.
Or not talk at all and go your separate ways. So if you think it's like, juvenile to talk about it before, you're wrong. You're actually juvenile because you're not mature enough to be like, you know what? Let's get out in front of this fight and not fight. How about that?
And it takes reps. Like it's like going to the gym. Like the first few times you do it, it is going to be hard. Like you are not going to do it right, and it's going to be all awkward, and it's going to be, feel so like, because you're being so vulnerable about it, and you feel like I should just be able to like go hold my own and like be okay and not have to have like a chaperone, but I'm not. And that is the beauty of relationships, is that you can help each other heal and get strong in situations like that. Like if you can make use of your partner, like you can help each other heal whatever is causing that insecurity. And I think it's taken us a long time to come to that place. I think for me, it was just so many expectations of him, one, just already knowing things, and two, just like not wanting to be vulnerable and being afraid of what being vulnerable would look like. And so being able to like sit in the car before the event and like just talk to you, like, I know this might sound so dumb, but like I am feeling anxiety about going in there and being left and like just being forgotten by you. I know that you wouldn't mean to do that. I want you to have fun. I don't want to feel like you're ball and chain. But I'm just being honest. Like I feel a little like anxiety about it. And then just let them speak into that and like let them come up with a plan. It's like, okay, here, like walk around with me. When you're ready to leave, let me know. Like I'll you can grab my arm. Like figure out a win-win, and just if you can look at your partner with compassion instead of like criticism in those moments when they're being vulnerable, that's going to be a huge win for your marriage.
Yeah, and the only thing I'd add to that is that if you are this more social butterfly person in the relationship, that your tendency will be to kind of leave them behind and like make them feel like bad because they're trying to keep up. And I've had to learn that the most important people in the social setting rooms is Brenda. That Brenda's more important than any of you guys. That if ever on a Sunday morning,
I'm just gonna go cry.
I know, right? That if any given Sunday morning that she shares the need on the way in, or she's like, babe, today, I'm feeling whatever. And let me just speak to why you feel those things. You should not feel bad that you feel those things. If you feel those things, it's hardwired into your brain because of things you experienced when you were young. And it is hardwired. All of the neuroscience coming out now is literally letting us know that the brain is hardwired, and it goes into autopilot when it gets emotionally triggered or frightened or afraid. And it's like, oh my gosh, here it goes again. I'm going to be missed like I was when I was a kid. I'm going to be neglected. I'm going to be blamed. I'm not going to be good enough. I've got to get better grades. I've got to be more like my sister. I've got to lose weight. I've got to make sure I make the team. I've got to do these things. And all of these emotions go on, and they kick the brain into the autopilot, and it runs your emotions. And then that shows up in the relationship. And you don't even know you're doing it. It's on autopilot, and all of a sudden you're acting out of it, and the person that's married to you is like, what in the world are you, what's going on here? How am I don't understand this. This is really difficult. And one of the things that we believe massively is that we are to help heal each other's minds. The Bible talks to us. By the way, if you're a guest, the last 5 weeks, go listen to the message that we've shared the last 5 weeks, because everything we're talking about today is rooted in Scripture's wisdom of love and interpersonal relationships. And we shared all of the scriptural reference for that. Today, if we're going to reference anything, it would probably be Romans 12:2, that it says, I want you to renew your minds. I want you to make sure that your minds are renewed. And this is what we've learned. Neuroscience tells us your brain can heal from the pain and the damage that it incurred. But this is the way you have to do it. You have to learn to do it in the relationship, and it doesn't heal unless you're looking into each other's eyes and in a non-threatening position. That the brain heals when you are eye to eye, face to face, shoulder to shoulder.
We've literally, guys, in a fight, to talk about a fight or a disagreement, we've literally gone into our closet like little teenage kids and closed the door and just sat Indian style looking at each other in the closet, because you just need a different setting. You can't, if you have a bad experience, or if most of your fights always happen in a certain room, don't try to do this in that room. Find a neutral place where you can just do this, where you're just sitting in a non-threatening way, looking at it. It's I'm telling you, just try it, try it.
And stop using text messages to communicate your emotions.
Yeah, we talked about that a lot.
Texting is not for emotions. Okay? That's not what it's for. You should only ever share information, not communication of emotion. You don't communicate emotions in text. These long texts that thumb scroll and thumb scroll and thumb scroll, and he's still not, and she's still not done.
We've heard that people do that.
That is, we know people who have done that. Listen, never again. The only emotion you can share in text is loving, caring, committed, secure-making emotion. Even in a fight. Babe, I love you. Let's talk about this when we can be face-to-face and we can talk and look, because the brain heals when it sees connection, and connection happens in the eyes. When you're in a fight with your kids, when you're in a fight when they're acting out, you don't just be in the car driving with your teenager thinking you're going to work it through. You're not. You're going to have to look at her, look at him, and be shoulder to shoulder, face to face, looking at each other and be like, we got to look at each other. Why? Because the brain will only heal. I'm telling you, I love God. I believe in the Bible. You can heal, quote Scripture, do all this stuff. And the Bible wants us to renew our minds, but then the Bible wants us to do the things that actually does that. And what we have learned and what they've been able to set up things and watch the brain change over history of people interacting like this is when we are safer to each other, we share in a way that doesn't shame, but we start off things like Brenda said, hey, I know that you're not trying to do this. I love this about you. You give them love and care before you bring in your need, and you don't use the attack to stay safe, but you're vulnerable and brave, and you share it from that place. that's when your brain heals and these fights don't stay in control, and it doesn't have to stay your story, and your kids will grow up in a different home than you did. Your kids don't grow up in a different home than you did because you buy more things for them than you had.
Oh, snap.
Okay, the only thing you do is make them have more things to avoid dealing with what the real pain is that they have. You haven't helped them at all, you've crippled them. You've given them more toys and more distractions, but they're still just as in pain and incapable of healing their brains and their hearts and their souls because you've not modeled that. No, teach them that. Teach them that mom and dad do. Let them today. We had a discussion this morning, and like we were able to work it through. I was able to share with Brenda, this is what that made me feel like. If you want to hear the whole entire story, listen to the podcast because we told the whole story in the first service. But like we did it, and I watched Eliana come walking out of the bathroom, and she saw us talking and apologizing and receiving the apology. Some of us are bad at receiving apologies because we're still hurt. And it's okay if you're still hurt and need time, but you need to say, I receive your apology, I hear you, I forgive you, I love you. I still need 10 to 15 minutes to process through my emotions.
And ladies, I just recently learned, like literally biologically, for men, whatever part of the brain that like allows us to like get over that hurt, like some women I know we can just be like, all right, we're good, like we made up, like what's wrong? Like why are you still upset? Like it does take them biologically, it's not like a pride thing. I mean, I'm not saying that sometimes it's not, like Chris was saying, like sometimes we can just but women do that too. We can get set in our ways, and it is pride. But for men specifically, some of the times it's literally just a biological thing where it just takes them longer to settle, and that's okay. So give them that space too, and let's not like be like, well, what the heck? Like I said, I was sorry. Why can't you forgive me?
Yeah, you're unforgiving. Yeah. You're just bitter. You're just
or
an
you're
angry
prideful.
person.
You're just prideful.
You're too prideful.
Yeah.
Because now it's like they're trying to work it through, and instead of you being compassionate and helping them have the space to process their emotions, you actually add more shame and actually trigger the same hurt, hardwired stuff that they're trying to overcome and heal their brain with eye-to-eye and shoulder-to-shoulder contact. You're actually just you're literally going in and stabbing at the wound they're trying to heal. Yeah. So it's counterproductive. So in this area with your kids, with your teenagers, especially in the primary relationship romantically, you won't heal if you don't learn to do those things. Yeah. In that
like
space.
Chris was saying, Ellie saw us make up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Ellie saw us make up.
Dude, she came out and was kind of looking like, what's going on? And it's like okay if your kids see you fight if you're not fighting ugly.
Yeah.
It's okay that she saw that. I was like,
that.
hey, babe, like when this happened, this made me feel like this, and I don't like that. I don't want to feel like that. And Brenda was able to like, hey, hear me, come here, look, hey, I'm sorry. I don't want you to feel like that, and I didn't mean to do that, and I can see how that would make you feel that way, and I'm really sorry. And then we hugged, and I was like, come here, I love you. And we hugged. It was eye to eye, and then we were hugging, and Eliana walked out of the bathroom and looked up, and the biggest smile came on her face.
The biggest smile, guys.
She was so happy to see our connection. That's
so secure.
The legacy that we want to build. We don't want her coming in and feeling like, before I even know what I'm learning to like hide away or accuse or attack and then go to my room and then not come out for 3 days and we don't talk and things are frosty for the next week. Like we don't want to reproduce that. We want to heal from that. And so we have to apply these different tactics that will help us renew, as Romans 12:2 says, to renew our mind. Next question.
I think this one's kind of around the same. Yeah.
My spouse won't share the TV remote.
Oh. That laughter means we got some people that can relate.
They like to watch a certain type of shows. I will graciously sit with them so I can spend time with them. But if I ever do get a chance at the remote, my spouse will go in the other room because they don't eat or they don't like to watch what I want. It's a give and take, but my spouse only wants what they want. How do you deal with that?
You take the remote. No, just kidding. And you make them sit there. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think
that's not going to work.
Don't do that. And that.
That's why you're still writing this question if you're doing that.
That's not going to work.
Here's what I'd like to say to that. If you don't mind, I'm going to jump in on this one, and then you take it from here. Number one, I think you need to have a discussion ahead of time of what you guys will watch together that you like and that they like. You need to discuss. Again, remember we talked about before? Stop waiting to have the discussion until after you're already in the fight. Get out in front of that thing. Hey, by the way, how much are me and you going to just entertain ourselves and our relationship by watching a screen? Like, how much of that do we want? Because some of you have never even had that discussion. Yeah. You've never even made a decision. You're just letting the culture tell you, or the autopilot of just turning on the TV tell you how much you're going to not connect eye to eye and connect eye to eye with the TV screen. And you're wanting more connection, but you're using most of that time. Look, we watch sports, and we've got the things that we're going to watch together. And mine are sports, and that's pretty much it. So sports. And Brenda, she likes movies, and she likes movies that make her feel good and are, fun and are great. I probably like certain movies that, she won't like, and so we don't do that, and that's fine, too. Here's the thing. You need to decide how much you're going to do that in your life and marriage anyways, number one. Number two, I would say this. Decide, again, ahead of time, hey, what works remember, not what works for you. You're in a relationship. You're in a two-person system. You don't get to just watch how much TV you want to watch, unless you're 12. You want to be a 12-year-old in your relationship, then show up and just demand what you want. Yeah. But if you really want to be in a healthy, functioning relationship, then it's a two-person system that you have to say, hey, here's what I want. I'd like to hear, what about you? Does this work? Well, no, I feel like that's too much. Or what about this? And it's and you negotiate back and forth until you get a win-win. And in order for it to be a win-win, you're going to lose some, and they're going to win some. You're going to win some, and they're going to lose some. And that's a win. The relationship wins, not one person always wins. So I think you need to, first of all, make a decision ahead of time. If you just try to snuggle up on the couch next to her or next to him and think oh, if I give this to them, then they're going to reciprocate. No, they're not. Because you haven't communicated your need. You haven't shared what your need is, and they're oblivious, obviously, to the need, which is why they're getting up and leaving, because why? Well, I don't know. I guess she really likes the stuff I watch. I really don't like her crappy shows. I'm out. Yeah. And we want to, I'm not saying he doesn't need or she, well, I don't know. There's no, gender language in this, but I'm taking a stab in the dark. But, I do think that whichever it is, they don't assume that they, don't care. Maybe they are selfish, and they need to have an honest discussion with you, and that's fine. But assume that, they're just I'm watching, I'm vegging out, and when I'm done watching this, I'll go do something else. But if that is not working for you, you need to share your need. Hey, I'd like to have a conversation. Do you think, and this is the deal, this is what we do. We set them up to hear us. Do not set your relationship up to not listen to you because you're ready to say it now, and I feel it now, so I'm going to say it the way I feel it. If you say it the way you feel it in the moment, it usually doesn't work for you. You need to learn how to be hey, is this a good time for you? Because I have some things I'd like to share, and I need you to hear me, and I just want to know if this is a good time. No, right now I'm a little whatever. And listen, this can't go, yeah, maybe in 3 weeks I'd like to hear your opinion. Right? You can't do that. You can't, that's avoiding honest discussion, and that's a byproduct of you being afraid of hearing things about you that are not positive that you need to hear, and that could be because you're hardwired as a child to be afraid of that. Maybe you saw criticism, maybe you saw neglect, whatever it was, you could be more sensitive to that and be oh my God, but that is something you need to work through, and you can only do that with a partner that says, hey, can we have this discussion? And eventually you got to be brave enough to say, yeah, and you're not going to like it the first many times, but you got to do it, or else you're going to keep the same dysfunctional cycle of disconnect and distance, and you don't want that. So I would say that you have to decide ahead of time. And the other thing I would say that I wrote brilliantly right here is unset expectations are going to be unmet expectations.
That's really
okay? Good. If you don't state your expectations, they're not going to be met. And it's not bad that they don't meet them. They don't meet them because you did not share them. So you need to take responsibility for sharing your expectations. Yeah. If you just project on, well, he should just know what I want. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you the kind of people in our world that just think the other person should just know what they want. You know who expect that? Children. Children expect mommy and daddy to always know the answer. You're an adult in an adult-to-adult relationship. The child that is hurt in you wants to expect them to know everything. But the adult, the high-functioning, mature adult goes, oh, I'm a high-functioning, mature adult. Of course you won't know everything about me. I have the manual on me, and I've got to share it with you. Yeah. And then when you learn more about me, then I can begin to expect, because I've actually shared my need in a non-attacking, non-accusatory, non-threatening way. And now you have the opportunity to actually hear me. Versus, you just don't care. I guess it's all about, and you're just going to be, and just lobbing bombs and expecting, to get care and empathy, and then be mad at them. Well, yeah, and look, you don't even care. It's well, of course they have no reservoir to care and show empathy to you, because you've gone in on the attack mode, and they're just frightened of your words. And a lot of us think that the only brutal, abusive, hardcore person is the guy's strength, and that does happen. Domestic violence is most often the man. So physical pain and all that can happen. But I'm going to tell you right now that, ladies, you could be just as threatening with your emotions and your words.
Yeah.
And you have to learn how to bring your need in a non-threatening, non-accusatory, non-attacking way if you want him to engage caring for your need. And if you want to make use of him, you need to make use of him caring for your need. Your need's important. You need to state it. Do not stay silent. Don't just sit on the couch and let him walk away. Don't do that.
Yeah.
That's not the anchor woman your man needs. He needs an anchor woman because he's not thinking like you. He's not a woman. He's a man.
Yeah.
And he needs your help to know your need, and your need's important. And do not stay silent. But you got to get him in a way where he can hear you. And accusing from a place of judgment is not working for you. It never will work. You have to come, is this a good time? I have something I want to share, and here's what I'm feeling, and I'd like you just to help me with what I'm feeling, because I would like some connection here. And guys, if she is brave enough and vulnerable enough to like go into her heart, not do what comes natural to the sinful like part of all of our human natures, and she fights and she resources herself with the strength of the Holy Spirit and the message she's heard at church and like her connection with like her life group, and she actually comes to you, not at you, but she comes to you with her problem, with, not at, and shares it, then you got to be a man, and you need to be strong and courageous enough to say, I'm not going to be defensive because I see my wife doing work here.
Yeah.
My girl's doing work, and I'm not going to get defensive and be small and be like, oh, yeah. No, you need to be like, you know what, babe, I'm hearing you, and it sounds, if I'm hearing you right, it sounds like, you know, this is making you feel worried that like we're not connecting, or you feel like it's not fair, and I don't want you to feel like that.
Yeah.
And don't say, I'm sorry I used to do this all the time, and it was really dismissive. I used to say to Brenda, like, well, I'm sorry you feel like that. So it sounds like I'm apologizing, but I'm actually dismissing her need. Well, I'm sorry you feel like that. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, poor Brenda, you feel like that. Do you hear how dismissive that is? That it's like I'm saying sorry with my words, but I'm really protecting my ego and my pride by being like, well, you're just sensitive. I don't say it, but I say it. Instead of saying eye to eye, face to face, shoulder to shoulder, babe, I'm really sorry I made you feel that way. I made you feel that way. Yeah. Did I intend to? No. Am I a bad person? No. Did I want to hurt her? No, but I'm not saying that. I'm just saying and identifying for her, I am aware that my actions made you feel that way. I'm not assigning intent. Guys, sometimes we get so caught up in, I want to make sure that you know that I didn't intend to, and we get hung up on the intent. I want to make sure you know, well, that's not what, I wasn't trying to do that, and you don't ever see anything. If she's going to be courageous and strong enough to do her role, you got to step up and do yours. When she comes with and to you and not at you, you got to be able to say, babe, I don't want you to feel like I'm just going to watch and then blow out of the room. I don't want that. I love you. I do want to connect with you. I want you to feel safe. I want you to feel cared for. I want you to feel connected. And you look her in her eye and you make sure she hears that. And that's your role as her man, to let her make use of you, to anchor her in her emotions and her vulnerability. That right there is what will get you through these things. Talking ahead of time, stating your expectations, and then if we do it healthy, man, step up to the plate and answer their help. That's what I would say. I think that's a pretty big one.
It's huge. And I would just add one more thing to that would be whether you're a man or a woman, it's okay if you don't know what you need. It's okay if it's just like the feeling. It's taken me a long time to like figure out how to identify my needs. Yeah. And so I just want to throw that out there. Like that's a journey, that's a process, and that's okay. And then, yeah, just everything Chris said. And I mean, I'm just going to go the extra mile. Like if your spouse is doing that and what you're really looking for is connection with them, then maybe even like do some extra work and figure out like what are some things that you could do instead of watching TV, or what are some ways that you would actually enjoy connecting with your spouse. And like when you go to have that conversation, like bring your problem to them, but also maybe bring some solutions and like, hey, like would you enjoy if we did this? Like would that work for you? Like how can we figure out a win-win so that they also don't feel like, they just feel included, they feel thought of as well. So that's just something extra that I would say.
Is saying I love you while you're dating someone a bad thing? I would say ultimately no. I think doing anything too soon, premature, to try to create some type of an emotional bond that the merit of the relationship doesn't merit is dysfunctional, and it's reaching, and it's you trying to control and make sure you don't get hurt, and it's part of your dysfunctional system. So don't use sex. Don't use words of I love you. Don't share too much of your personal story too soon in the relationship because you think if we connect emotionally, he'll stay with me. If we connect sexually, we'll stay together. If I say I love you, then she'll never leave me for someone else. Those are unhealthy, threat-based, fear-based ways to try to secure a relationship, and actually they end up making them insecure. The only secure way to do it is to put the things of Christ front and center in your relationship. I'm going to make a declaration to you. If Jesus is the centerpiece of your relationship, his ways, his truths, his word is the centerpiece of your operating system in your two-person system, your relationship will never fail. It will be hard. It is actually the harder way to go. It's easy to sit on the couch and eat bags of chips and ice cream and watch endless amounts of shows. That doesn't take effort. Yeah. It takes effort to get up early in the morning, to watch what we eat, to cook meals, to pre-cook, to work out, to get in a different way of thinking, and to that is hard, but it's healthier. And so for us, the same thing is true in our relationships. It is harder to do it the right way until you realize how hard stress is on your body. Did you know that stress is like actually one of the number one contributors to a lot of our disease and sicknesses? It eats away at our healthy immune system. It eats away at our body's ability to fight off sicknesses and illnesses. Stress is a killer. And we think it's easier to stay at odds and to not work on these things, but actually it just keeps stress on your body, and it will actually lower the longevity of your life. Yeah. It weakens the lining of the heart, like vital organs, because stress goes in and eats away at that. And so this stuff is so hard on our systems when we don't do this right. Yeah. And so I think that when it comes to the idea of I love you, it's not a bad thing when the relationship merits it. I did not call Brenda my wife and give her that title and then go out and try to make the relationship live up to that title. We created a relationship that had substance and connection and enough to be able to commit to long term, and then you give the title to the relationship. Often in our culture, we give title to things that don't deserve it. We hand out badges and trophies for things that haven't been earned, and we do the same thing, and we think, oh, we had sex, we have such a powerful bond and chemistry, and then you get together and you're trying to like patch things and learn each other and know what you like after you have this emotional bond that's just a direct result of sexual connection. And you're doing it backwards. God intended sex to be something that's in a protected, I will never leave you environment, because it's heartbreaking when you are that emotionally and physically and sexually bonded, and then there's disconnect. So we're not supposed to be serial daters and serial like people of like going around and just finding different partners sexually. It's not appropriate. It's broken. You could do it, and we'll love you forever at this church, and there's no shame in it, because it's one of many sins that we do. But I'm just telling you that God's intended design and for your fulfillment is not for that. And so don't use those mechanisms to try to secure your relationship, because you'll be shocked when you wake up and realize it didn't secure it. It actually created more insecurity, more instability, and then you won't know why. This stuff we're telling you today is how you create it. You have to become people who put Jesus' ways at the centerpiece. It is harder until it's not, and you're healthy and you don't have stress and it's not beating you up. That's what I'd say to that one. Is this helping you guys at all? Yeah? Are you guys, is this working? All right, good. I think we got time for about one more. What do you got? What do you think? You keep turning over to this side, so it makes me think you want to answer a question on this side.
I know. I'm sorry. I keep flipping, and then you keep flipping.
But you don't have one?
I was looking at, where did it go? I guess this one here.
Okay. How did your upbringing affect the way that you affect you and how you show up in your marriage?
So for me, I was raised in a very verbally and physically abusive home, and my mom, it was very machismo, so it was like women, you basically cook, clean, take care of the kids, and like that's what you do. And so coming into a marriage relationship, I had no idea, like I said, what that two-person system looked like. I didn't come to it with secure, like primary relationship built-in wiring, or how to do that, how to build security. Because I think one of the biggest things, at least in the last couple years, that I've learned as I've understood and unpacked my story with my therapist, is that a lot of the hurts that we carry, like you can do so much work. Like I went to ministry school for 2 years. I've done, like there's just so much work that I've done before getting married, reading my Bible, like going all the women's groups. Like I read a lot of books, like just all this pre-work before getting married, which is all great. Like do it, because God knows how much more I would have had to work through if I hadn't done that. But even with all of that, once you get into a relationship, a secure relationship, like Chris was saying, when it's with a person that is not going to like just leave you, right? And so when I got into this secure relationship, even though we both didn't really know how to function in a secure relationship, I was able to have a lot of other issues that were triggered that I didn't even know were still in there. And so, but now, because of my history, I'm able to come to Chris, and because of the work I've done in the last couple of years, I'm able to come to Chris and talk to him about my story and understand my story, and I'm able to have him come in and speak into my story and share with that. And that has been huge, because I think for the longest time, I've just thought, like, I just need to be secure. Like, why am I still so insecure in all these areas? Why am I not confident yet? Why am I not, like, at peace with some of these things? Like, God, when are you going to finally heal me of this stuff? And what I've learned, like I said, just in the more recent time in our marriage, is that I can't get secure by myself. I need Chris. God literally has wired us to need one another. And so in the needing of him and being able to make use of him, I get secure in those areas. So a lot of the things I would hear growing up is like, well, if you have daddy issues, you have mommy issues. And what I've learned is actually, one, we all have mommy and daddy issues. But two, it's not even about mommy and daddy issues. It's about secure issues. Like, it's about attachment issues. So we all have either healthy or unhealthy ways of attaching to someone. And Chris is my primary relationship now. I don't have my mom and dad anymore. Like, we cut the cord when I was like 15, right? My dad was like, "You're 15, get a job, peace out, I'm not paying for anything." And I did, and I'm grateful for that, because it's made me like who I am. But at the same time, I didn't know when it came to Chris, like, how to attach healthily to him. And so there was a lot of criticism. There was a lot of, like Chris was saying, women, we can be so scary to our men. And so there was just so much of just not knowing how to do that and not trusting him, and working through that, but learning that I can only work through all those things with him. And if I bring him into that process, instead of constantly making him the reason for that pain, but like bringing him into that pain and helping him sit in that pain with me. And it's ugly. Like, I don't even like sitting in it myself. So it's like, why am I going to get mad that he doesn't like to sit in it? But we need each other. And I think that that's one of the biggest things just in the last years that I've learned with my marriage, and how my story has affected the way that I behave in our marriage.
Yeah, that's, I think that's a really big one for all of us. And we all have these things that have hurt us and affected us. And there's no angels or demons in your relationships, okay? Every one of us has a part of us that is really hurt and acts out and shows up in the relationship in a broken way. And all of us have things that are really wonderful and we got from our parents that are really cool and good. And they show up too. So no one is the angel or the demon in the relationship. We're all a mixed bag, and that shows up in the relationship. What I do think is important is that when you are recognizing like each other's stories, and there's like, it's like you're learning to get good at hearing it. You have to learn how to make use of the primary relationship and not just like lob bombs and attack them. And a word picture that I've used, I think maybe can help some of you is this. When you have to decide, like, you can make use of your partner if you engage them to battle with you on behalf against the things you're fighting. So let's use like medieval attacks, right? Like, if you ever seen a movie where there's like a dragon, he's flying around blowing fire on everyone, right? And it's like, dude, if you are someone who's like And look, I'm not the whole damsel in distress, girl in the tower. The only strong one in the story is the dude on a horse with a sword. I'm like, nah, you need to be like She-Ra up in here on a horse. And like, you need to have your own sword out and be like, I'm fighting my insecurities, my vulnerabilities, my past, my hurts. It ain't his job to fight all those things for me and pull me out the freaking tower. Get out the freaking tower yourself and get on a dang horse and get yourself a sword and get out and get yourself a pack of women that are like, let's kill this freaking dragon and get after this thing. I'm not about like only he can help you not be insecure. Girl, you need to take that. You need to be the chief person besides Jesus on behalf of you that is fighting that stuff, not hoping, will he come? No, he ain't going to come.
Yeah.
You know why? Because there ain't
nothing
attractive about some, unless you, the only men attracted to that dysfunctional picture are men who want weak-willed, controllable women who have no point and nothing to say, who want to play Peter Pan and fly around with the Lost Boys and have Wendy take care of everything for them. They don't want to grow up. They don't want to be a man. So it's like, oh, cool. You'll never make me be a man because I rescued you and I'm the one that's stronger in this relationship. Bump that. That is a punk guy who is not worthy of like you trying to choose. If you're single, if you already chose him, keep bringing him to church. We're going to help him. We're going to help you. Now listen.
That's good.
Now I'm going to keep it 100 with you, okay? I'm going to lean in a little bit on the ladies. You have to decide if you want him to be one of the guys who swings in and joins your battle against your dragons. We all got them. If you want him to swing in, jump on a horse, you look at him and say, what's up, boo? What's up? You see me? I see you. Let's go kill this thing. Yeah, it's mine. That dragon, that's my dragon, okay? I admit it. I want you to know that I know that dragon, that's my B right there. That's my bad, okay? That's on me. That dragon is my fault, and it's trying to kill this whole town, burn you and me and all our kids and families alive because of me. I want you to know that dragon's mine. I know you got yours, but this is our story right now about me. I want you to know that I know that you have to decide if you want that or if you want to keep doing it the way you've been doing it and treating him like he's the dragon.
Oh.
Because when you treat him like it's his fault, he's breathing the fire, you're the one attacking me, you'll never get him next to you on the horse, unsheathing his sword and using his strength and his wisdom and his care and his love and his nurture and the things he sees in you. You'll never get him side by side on this side of the shield if you keep treating him like he's the dragon breathing the fire on you. You need to identify that the fire and the dragon is stuff that is inside and outside, and it's that stuff. It's your insecurity, it's your vulnerability, it's hard, it's this pain. It's not you. Yes, sometimes you do things that trigger that stuff, and there are even things you've done that like created little mini dragons flying around. We could take care of that. But the big dragon out there, you did not create. That thing showed up before I met you. It predates me and you meeting in a crowded room with a starry sky, and we just bumped into it and said, hey, what's your name? Okay, before that, that dragon was flying in my head and in my heart and trying to take me out, and I want you to know that I know that. Now, having said that, I need your help. I'm not the only one. You're not going to be the only one fighting this. I'm in it too. Right. I'm in the battle, but I really think we could take him out if both of us fight that one together, and then guess what? He'll say, you know what, girl, let's do it. In fact, while we're doing it, see that one coming in right there? That fool's mine. And he's crazy. Okay? And he crazy. So if you don't mind, man, let's do this. You know, are you bored fighting your stuff? You are? Why don't you fight mine for a minute? I'll fight yours. Let's just share fighting these dragons. And see, listen, if you make them the dragon in a fight, you're not going to feel like you have anyone helping you. You'll feel alone. You'll feel like he doesn't care. And you'll keep projecting the same old narrative that you really learned to protect yourself from further pain when you were younger. Yeah. And church, listen to us. That is a recipe for and listen, there's people sitting in this room still doing that, and they've been married 30 years. Yes. Still projecting you. Kids grew up, and it's still the way it is. This is not you won't grow into what I just said. You could read the Bible, you could memorize scripture, you could speak in tongues, you could worship with all-out passion, you could do all things, man, all this stuff, and guess what? You will still be a broken, sinful human being without the tools to engage a proper, healthy, functioning relationship if you do not do what Romans 12:2 says, which is you need to renew your mind. You don't renew your mind just because you memorize scripture. I'm going to tell you right now, man, Peter was living with scripture. Homeboy is living with Jesus, and after he rose from the dead is still tripping in his mind. He had to renew his mind. That takes work and effort and you applying the principles that we're going to hopefully teach, not just today, taught in the first service, but as a community. This is going to be an ongoing discussion, because what's more important than our marriages and our families on this planet? Do you ask all the people you ever worked for to come into your bed right before you pass away? Is that who comes to visit you before you die? Is it all the business trips you take, sir? Ma'am, is it all the different like moms that you know that you meet? Is that who you want around you right before you pass away? Who you want right before you breathe your last and you go into eternity with or without God? That's who you should spend your time making sure is taken care of emotionally. That's who you should invest everything into, because that's what really matters when it's all said and done. Because when it's all said and done, it all goes back in a box. Just like the game of life. When we're all done, it all goes back in a box. And when we're all done, we're all going to go back in a box. And then our eternal souls goes with or without God for eternity. And our desire is that you'll learn that if you put Christ in the center of your heart and the center of your two-person system and apply his wisdom and you commit, and listen, commit to the local church. Man, you are who you hang around. Yeah. You are what you listen to. And if you are in here, you're going to hear steady doses of things that are going to help you, challenge you. And listen, if you got it twisted and you think for 1 second, because we're passionate about it, that it's easy to get up in front of you guys and keep it this honest about the things we're not good at, it's not. But we ain't doing this for us. We're doing this because we believe God's called us to it. And when God's called you to be honest and paint a new picture of what pastors look like to a church, I want to redefine what the word church means to my daughter, to your daughters, to your kids, to your marriages, to your grandkids, and to this community, and anyone who finds us online. Like, and I do. We desire to do that. And if the cost of that is that it bruises our ego and our pride, and sometimes we have to share like unglamorous things so that there's people in the room that go, oh my gosh, like I have hope now because like our pastors are on this real journey too. And Jesus is the only one that's worth looking at. Then you know what? We're willing to take it. And it isn't easy and it is a little difficult, but we love you and we love what God's building in our city church more than we love our little perfect idea of who we are and who we're not. And I just hope that that means something to you guys, because whether you might know it or not, it's a real big treasure and a gift for us to be giving to you. And we just want to make sure that you see the value of it from us, because we love you that much. So, Brenda's going to wrap up in prayer, and then we'll point our hearts towards a couple things here in the next couple weeks, okay? Babe, why don't you pray for us?